All right, everybody, welcome to our general session for June. We're going to open our session at 7 o'clock, 7:01. Would you all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, before we move to mayor and council comments and on with our agenda, part of our agenda is a presentation to Officer Mayo by Chief Doyle, and so we're going to move that up. Officer Mayo is on duty, and so we want to take this opportunity to do it. So, Chief Doyle.
Mr. Mayor, Honorable Council, I just want to thank you for the opportunity to recognize Officer Mayo. As many of you are aware, he returned to full duty status with our department on April 15th after a bout away dealing with a serious illness. And I've heard many of our officers remark, and I've seen personally, Aaron's resolve and his commitment to our department in returning to full duty status. And I'm extraordinarily appreciative of that. I know the city is, and as is our department. Just a few remarks. I know Aaron's ready to head out the door, but I think it's important that we take this minute to recognize him. Your response to this adversity says a lot about your character and who you are. And I appreciate that, and I think it's worthy of recognition. So, I'll read the citation. In recognition of the courage, commitment, and resolve you displayed in overcoming a serious illness and returning to full duty status as an officer of the Coquille Police Department, you are hereby awarded the Meritorious Service Medal. Your actions reflect the best traditions and capabilities of the law enforcement profession and our department. This department and the city and our citizens of our community recognize your resolve, determination, and character in critical and uncertain circumstances. The manner in which you overcame these circumstances is an example to us all. We thank you, and we're proud of you. Thank you. Show the council up.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I'd love to see that.
Awesome. Congratulations. Thank you.
Good job.
Good job, Chief.
Yeah, thank you.
See, it wasn't that bad.
That's awesome.
Great, thank you, Officer Mayo, and our whole police department. Appreciate all your service. Thank you, Chief. What a great way to begin our meeting. A couple of notes for my comments. First is agenda item number 14 says reserved. That is going to be the surplus of a Coquille Fire and Rescue vehicle. And so when we get there, we will make mention of that. Also want to mention Councilor Cooper is traveling on his way back, so he's on the road, and Councilor Corbus just had a senior graduate, and so she's participating on the graduate trip with the seniors, and so that's why she's not here this evening as well. And again, want to welcome everybody. Glad to have you. As part of my comments, just super grateful again for the Coquille Chamber and all of their volunteers, including some of our own staff here at the city who've participated and helped. And just appreciate all of the sponsors and all the businesses. We're heading into a great weekend for Coquille River Days, and so we're expecting a huge turnout. And so I'm just super grateful, and I think it's a great opportunity for our community to come together and enjoy the great outdoors. And so we have some great things lined up, including the biggest, earliest fireworks show on the South Coast, for sure, right here in Coquille, Saturday night. And so, and obviously, opening weekend for the Sawdust Theater as well. So there's just so many things. Coquille, is it chambercoquille.org? Chambercoquille.org has all the events and a lot of things on social media as well. And then one final thing, just want to congratulate all of our seniors who graduated this last weekend. Congratulations to all of them and all of their hard work. Great job. All right, Councilor Waddington.
Yeah, I just ditto what Mayor Flaherty said. Also like to congratulate our girls track team and boys track team at the state track meet. Did great. Also in Myrtle Point, we had some athletes, baseball athletes, and so made state tournaments. And so, yeah, it's just a great community to be involved with.
Councilor Marshall.
It's hard to believe I know it, but I don't have anything tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Councilor Westrom.
Basically, just kind of reiterate what you said. Kickoff of the Gay 90s is Friday night with the champagne benefit at the Sawdust Theater. There's still a lot of tickets available. Tickets by the Rotarians are available. We rolled back the prices, so they're back to $25. But kickoff at the champagne benefit, and a little look-see at the Rotary auction that'll be coming up in October. You'll get to get a little peek at what we have in store for you then. Thank you.
Great. So just a reminder, everybody get out this weekend, enjoy each other, and enjoy this amazing community. It's going to be a great time. All right, I'm going to now move on to our consent calendar. Agenda item number 5.
I make the motion to accept the consent calendar as presented by staff.
Second.
Okay, motion by Councilor Marshall, seconded by Councilor Waddington to approve the consent calendar. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, unanimously, thank you. Staff reports. We have our interim chief, Zach Latimer, here for Coquille Fire and Rescue.
I don't have anything to add. If you have any questions, let me know.
Just a comment, congratulations. I know you're a co-interim chief with Chief Scolari, right? And so I appreciate you stepping up and covering our department, and thank you.
Thank you, Zach, for stepping up. If you ever need something answered or something, you have a question, give me a call.
Thank you.
All right. No questions, thank you. We're going to move on to Public Works, Director Denny.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. It's in the report, but I just wanted to give a public welcome to Corey Clausen, who joined the utility crew. And also thank you to Sam Gilmore, our plant operator, who's been here just over 6 years, I think, running the water plant. And his last day will be at the end of June here. So thanks to Sam, and welcome to Corey, and happy to answer any questions you have.
Yeah, Mark, just a question on this fitness court and fitness studio. Where's that planning on going?
So the plan right now is to put it at that first bend, basically at the edge of the carousel lot. There's a carousel lot, and then there's about 30 feet of public property, between there and the actual walk. So it would take up a good portion of that free area right now, as well as a bit of the carousel lot property.
Okay. And then of that $30,000 cost, how much is that our out-of-pocket expenses?
That would be our expense.
And
Yeah.
where's that going to come from?
So we get an annual endowment from an anonymous donor that was actually made known to us, and I can't remember their name, I apologize, but in a fund that's managed by Oregon Community Foundation. And out of that endowment, they give us a dividend every year, depending on how the fund did. And those have been running, anywhere from $40,000 to $50,000 per year. So, and I think we have $40,000 to $50,000 budgeted to spend out of that this year. We're holding a little bit more in donations over the past couple of years. It's the same money that paid for the restroom down there.
Okay. I think that's all.
I just want to highlight too, and again, for people online, you can find these reports online at cityofcoquille.org, but I just want to thank your wastewater operators too. I guess I just want to say, Director Denny, I appreciate your reports, how thorough they are, and I appreciate the fact all the information you include, including the wins. And they're saving money down there at the sewer plant, so I appreciate that. Yeah.
Thanks.
All right, before we move on to library, I was in a conversation with Haley. Planning report didn't make it in due to the holidays this month, but I just want to add, talking to Haley this morning, 5 new homes, not counting what's going on at Jefferson, 5 new homes are being built in Coquille this year and entering construction this summer. And so I just want to mention that's a good thing. I'm thankful for that, and good things are happening, so appreciate that. Thanks for that update, Haley. All right, Director Lucas, Public Library.
Good evening, everyone. In addition to my report, we just found out this afternoon that our children's librarian got another grant for $3,500 from Pacific Power for her homeschool program.
Nice. Yeah.
Keep up the good work.
Yeah.
It's, you're definitely making the library cool again, so that's always a good thing to have that down there for the kids and all the programs. We hear a lot of good things about it, so thank you and your staff for all the hard work and time and stuff that you guys put into that.
Thank you. I'll let them know.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Director Lucas. All right, our Coquille Police Report, Chief Doyle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The only thing to add is the rollout of our property watch program might be just slightly delayed due to some ongoing reviews with Mr. Costello, but I'm hopeful that we can have that rolled out in the near future.
Chief Doyle, did we budget for that new police car in last year's budget?
That was actually carried, no, it was not carried over. That was part of last year's budget, correct?
Okay. We have the funds somewhere?
I'm sorry?
We have the funds somewhere?
Yes, those were in a reserve fund, so they actually did carry over to this. We weren't sure if it was going to get done before the end of the year, but they are in this year's current fiscal year budget.
Right.
I just wanted to extend out to, if you would, to your officers. One of them's in the room here now as well, but so at my other job that I have, we constantly battle homeless. And a lot of times I just have a hat and a vest and we have to go and evict these people off of our right-of-ways. Your officers are always been literally a phone call away. Not only do they report those sightings, they also come and assist us in going down and serving the papers and make sure that we stay safe. So if you could echo to them that we appreciate that part of it and trying to eradicate that out. It's a huge resource drain for us. As a small department, I understand that part of it, but at the bigger level, we appreciate it, and we extend the thanks to them. We appreciate the extra keeping us safe while we're trying to do our job there.
Well, I appreciate your comments and your praise, and I'll certainly relay that to them as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I, for one, being a property owner downtown, I'm looking forward to this program. So thank you for pursuing that.
Welcome to the hood.
Heading that up, I appreciate it. I'll be one of the first ones to sign up.
Absolutely.
Welcome to the hood.
We'll get those applications ready.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I want to piggyback on that. I'm always frustrated to call our officers on some of those things because I know they're busy, and I probably, like a lot of citizens, we just don't want to call and bother them. But when we do, and I've had to, I mean, they're there, and I just appreciate their professionalism and how they serve our community. So I just want to echo that thanks as well.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Dealing with the same people.
Any other questions? All right, thank you, Chief. And the report, finance report from Director Ailing.
Yes.
Sorry about the late submittal, but I do have, it, I believe, is online now. And I have nothing to add. I can summarize.
Michelle, just I guess a dumb question from my feeble little brain. I have a business in town, and I reconcile my checkbook and do banking and get a bank statement. How come it takes the city 6 months to get a year's worth? You're 6 months behind on last year's reconciliation. Is it, how do I want to say this? Is the bank statement, why are we 6 months behind on a reconciliation from last month? Is it that detailed that you can't get one done every month?
So currently, we haven't had the training in the department to be able to do it monthly. However, we are, as of now, caught up thanks to our outside CPA. So we're caught up as of May 31st. This Thursday, I had to think about that. This Thursday, I will start training with Springbrook. I reached out to them back in November, but they didn't have availability until now. And I pushed them. They honestly didn't have it now, but I pushed them for a few hours here and a few hours there so that I could get the training. And so now we're slated for that, and I'll work side by side with the CPA on June to make sure that what we have in Springbrook matches what she's doing and that I'm doing it correctly. And then from July, we'll go live, and we'll have it in Springbrook consistently.
Okay, so we're caught up for 2024.
We are caught up to 2025 right now, May 31st.
Okay, so we're up to May
We are
31st,
current.
2025. We're
Yes.
current, but we're still 3 years behind on our audits.
Correct. The auditors have asked for samples, and which we are gathering at this moment. So our rock star, Lori Cannon, she left us for some awesome opportunity. So now I am taking over the audit prep work and gathering, and so I'll have a better idea of where everything's at. She has a checklist, and so I'll take a peek at that and have a better answer for you next month. We are pretty close, from what I know, to finishing that particular audit, and then with that being said, we'll roll right into the next one and hopefully be even quicker on the following.
What's the plan for rehiring that position, or are we going to? Are we just going to hold on to that, or?
I'm still debating. We're going to hold on for it for now. One of the things Forrest and I talked about was maybe hiring a fourth person, not so much backfilling a financial supervisor, but a fourth person just to do work in the department. And mainly I would use them for audit. I do have a meeting with a company that specializes in catching cities up with audits. Not sure what all that encompasses or even how much it costs, but I am curious. And then what I'll do with that information is I'm going to reach out to the State Department, the State Department of Audits, and I'm going to ask if they have grant work for that and see if I can't get grants and then a specialized company to get us caught up on these 3 years. It's not something I like to see.
Is it uncommon for a city to be 3 years behind in their audits?
Apparently not.
I know, because it's been brought up in meetings past. I know I've asked regularly, what do we got to do to expedite our audits, even if it meant spending extra money. And here we are watching every penny. However, I would still advocate, and I would love to hear how that goes, because I would still advocate that we figure out some way to get caught up ASAP, even though you're facing, obviously shortages in staff too. Whatever you find out, it'd be interesting to hear.
Well, and it might be that, we planned for a supervisory position, which I'm just going to ballpark it, $150,000. We could use those funds if we had to on that audit catch-up. So there's a little bit of movement that I'm kind of just looking at, adjusting and just kind of analyzing at the moment. I think I have that meeting with them next Friday. So.
A supervisory position employee doing what?
So this,
$150,000?
that was
we don't
with
have?
benefits and everything else. Yeah, that's all benefits, taxes, PERS, all of that. So they're not making, obviously, that out of pocket, but yeah, it costs about that for that position.
So where would that position fall under you as the finance director?
She would she would take the day-to-day operations. She would oversee UB, AP, and payroll, and her job was to make sure that that runs day-to-day operationally. I would do the overhead stuff, the bigger projects, the things that would come up, like developing a collections plan, things like that. We still have a lot of projects. They just, keep getting backburnered, and with the loss of her, it will increase workload for me a lot, believe it or not, but I'm still gonna go forward. That's all I can do.
I had one more, and I don't know if you want to do it as HR or if Forrest wants to answer the question. So we've had a lot of turnover here recently. We've lost irreplaceable employees. Are we doing exit interviews? And if we are doing exit interviews, I would like to see them. I imagine the whole council would probably like to see them. And if we're not doing exit interviews, we really need to. Because sometimes there's a root cause that, as a council, we may not be aware of. Kind of part of the things, like I mentioned, the trust but verify. I'd like to verify that, why are they leaving? Why are we losing key components that we pay very well? Why are they leaving all of a sudden?
I will say that I had I guess you can say an informal exit interview with Lori. She has a job with the city of Bandon. She lives in Bandon, so for her it was kind of a no-brainer. She's close to home now. And I did ask her if there was anything else to be improved upon, and it was just more teamwork amongst the city, which I think is definitely, the department versus department. When we have our company picnic or, city picnics, everybody sits with their group, right? And so she said that if, one of the things that she would love to see is more, mingling, if you will. So, but as far, that was the only thing that she could come up with as far as, say Justin leaving. I did not perform an exit interview. I was not his supervisor. And I will leave that to Forrest to answer that. If you'd like.
Well, and I just want to go ahead and step in here as mayor, certainly Forrest. The ask is under our charter and the way our charter is written, this council only has direct purview over our city manager, our city attorney, and our city municipal judge. And so, although we can make that ask, it would not be in a public meeting. It would be privately with Mr. Neuberg, and then Mr. Neuberg would direct how that goes. And so, and I'm just stating that as a reminder for this council body, that we can make those requests privately from Mr. Neuberg, but that's where that comes from, because that is who we have direct oversight.
Good information.
And I think that's good, and the charter protects us. Otherwise, we become counselors meddling in HR, and actually that has been more problematic in city municipalities. I think this council body has done a really good job at that. And so if we have, of not meddling, by the way, if we have questions, counselors, direct your questions to Mr. Neuberg, and then he can follow up with us.
And I'm happy to informally discuss those things. I could not show you an actual exit interview document, but I'm familiar with the majority of employees that have left recently and could discuss what some of their issues were. So if there's a counselor that wants to have that discussion with me, happy to meet with you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Director Ailey. Appreciate it. All right, I think that's it for staff reports that are in the packet, which is what I usually go by. We're now going to move on to public participation. And just remind folks, if you're here, you can sign up to speak during public participation. You have 3 minutes to speak, address the mayor. And there'll be a timer. It's right on the side there. And usually when the 3 minutes ends, I'll ask to wrap it up in 30 seconds or so. And then we take notes. It's your voice. We listen. And so, and almost always we follow up with you. And so I think we have a few people signed up. And who's first?
Lisa Baker.
All right, Lisa Baker, go ahead and step up to the microphone there. Thank you.
Hi, guys. If I make a buffoon out of myself, it's because I'm an introvert, so
That's all right.
I'm sorry. The last meeting, you guys were talking about the ambulance, and I was sitting there, and we live in Riverton, and we have a good well, and we don't pay the water bill, but we have used the ambulance, as you know. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, this isn't fair, because we've used the ambulance, and we don't have a water bill. And then Paul was sitting there, and he leaned over to me and he whispered in my ear, you know, this isn't fair because we use the ambulance. So we have used the ambulance. So we were thinking, he's going to talk to, but I'm on a limited income, but I've cut some of my extra stuff, you know, Amazon Prime video stuff and all that junk. I want to pay for like my part. Even though we don't live in this city, I feel like it's only fair that we pay because we've used the ambulance and it's just not fair. So if you guys get something organized or if you have a way to do it, I'd like to do that. Pledge to pay what everybody else does.
Okay.
If did that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Very much.
that's all I wanted to.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lisa. Appreciate you. You did great for an introvert.
Next up, we have Paul, and I always mess up his last name, Chorostecki.
Yeah.
Oh, yay. Nice.
Very good job, Lisa. Mayor, council, no one should ever decide whether to take their medication or eat. At the same time, no one should ever have to worry about paying an additional $25 fee to help the ambulance service if they are struggling. So my proposal is this, gentlemen, because with Lisa explaining, you all know that I've also used the services twice. Once the Coquille River christening, and the other one was an emergency at my home with a highly allergic reaction to a colonoscopy prep. The EMT service here is amazing. So I don't think it's fair for people that have a water bill pay, but I don't pay, but I'm eligible for services. So I propose this to the council, mayor, council. Maybe we can put a volunteer emergency fund for the EMT ambulance service only, so that it doesn't go in the general fund. Maybe you can attach it to the memorandum that you put on the water bill, and that would be strictly volunteer. And I pledge Paul Korostecki the $25 fee for 2 years, along with everyone here in Coquille, because I want to be part of the solution, not the problem. I chose this city for my resting place. I'm not going anywhere. So I'm all in with Coquille, and I am proud to be part of Coquille, and I've been here for 2 years now. So the newlywed season is over. So if we can do that, gentlemen, I have, madam and gentlemen, I pledge this for this period. If you set it up, you have my contact information, and we can start setting up my bank to make these deposits to help the city of Coquille for their emergency EMT ambulance service. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you. Very encouraging and very generous. Thank you. Appreciate it.
And last on the list, David Jennings.
Mr. Jennings.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. I wanted to express support for the utility fee approach that the city is using because, as been talked about previously, this gives the city some breathing room to try to develop something that's vitally important. I realize nobody wants to pay more money for anything, least of all me, but at the same time you have to do that. This is tied to the fact that, especially in times like this that are very difficult, local control is overwhelmingly important because there are many services that people need, but they also have to have some control over its delivery and some accountability. And if you don't have some sort of a system that's either through the city government or through some other governmental body that spends money, has the authority to raise money through taxes and run a district that has an ambulance service, then basically you don't really control much about it. Other people can make decisions for you, whether that's some private company that you contract with or some other governing body that you don't have control over makes those decisions. And an ambulance is an absolutely vital component of what Coquille needs. I think there's a bright future for this community, but I think you have to have some basic things: public safety, fire, ambulance, and some other basic city services are something we have to have, and I hope that you can find a way to do that. The other thing I want to say, and I realize there's a lot of cynicism about government. I don't know if it makes anybody feel better, but I think people should be aware that most municipalities and counties and many other local governments in Oregon and elsewhere are having a lot of problems financially. So this isn't something where Coquille is an outlier. It's having some problems, but that doesn't mean that those problems can't be solved. And I think it's very important that you move forward with getting some sort of an organization, to my mind, preferably a government body, that's accountable to the people of this area that can provide an ambulance service. One of the things about a utility fee, nobody likes them. Nobody should like them. I don't think they're a real good way to run things like this. But the reality is, without going into the detail, the tax system under our property tax limitations and other measures is extremely limited, and many, many municipalities and counties and other local governments are beginning to go towards a fee-based system of delivering services. It isn't ideal, but in this particular case, it gives you some breathing room. And I think it's something you should hold on to and do everything to educate people and try to implement the best as best you can. And I realize there are going to be people that are not going to like this because of the fee, but I think this is vitally important, not just to Coquille, but to the surrounding areas. And I encourage you to move forward with this. So anyway, thank you for listening.
Thank you, Dave.
Mr. Jennings, appreciate it. Thank you. It's great to have public input. We always invite it. Thank you for participating. All right, agenda item number 8, consider council applicant. We do have a council applicant for the vacancy, but Mr. Flynn, which his application is in the packet, is on a plane right now, traveling. And so I would like to make a motion to table that agenda item till next month, in preference to having him here in person so that we can interview him as part of a potential team member.
Second.
Okay, motion by Mayor Flaherty to table agenda item number 8, applicant Mr. Flynn for council, seconded by Councilor Waddington. Any other discussion or questions? All those in favor? Aye. All right, thank you. And just so that everybody's aware, I have contacted Mr. Flynn, and I let him know that that would probably be what would be happening. So he is aware. We're going to move on to agenda item number 9 then. Teamster Local 206 contract. Mr. Denning.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the final draft of the contract is in your packets. We've gone over in executive session the details of the contract, and the union has ratified this agreement, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
I'll move to approve the agreement and authorize city manager to sign the same as presented.
Second.
Right, motion by Councilor Marshall to, it was approve the contract and authorize city manager to sign the contract, seconded by Councilor Waddington. Any other discussion or questions? All those in favor? Aye. Passes unanimously. Thank you. And thank you, Director Denning, for all your work on this. And all right, looks like we're heading into our budget, so I'm going to recess our Coquille City Council meeting and open and convene our public hearing on budget and revenue sharing and imposition of taxes. So at this time, we are now in an open hearing portion for our budget only. So if anybody here has anything to say in regards to our budget, now would be the time.
I lost number 11. Where's number 11?
There wasn't a number 11. Oh, because it's a public hearing.
I don't have a number 11 though.
Right.
Oh. Oh, God. All right. But there's got to be something we have to say.
All right, I think at this point, seeing no comment for a public hearing, and once, twice, I'm going to close our public hearing and reconvene our council meeting. We are moving on to agenda item number 12, Resolution 08-2025, State Revenue Sharing.
Mr. Mayor, before you move forward, can we note in the record that Police Chief Ryan Doyle is not the city manager?
That was on the... That was referenced on the action sheet. It was on the action sheet. There wasn't a change.
No offense, Chief, but I'm just saying, that kind of shocked me because I didn't think that we appointed you and I didn't know about it.
But in the event of an emergency, you could have to step up to that role. Just the shoes that were left before you. Mr. Neuberg's pretty tough, though. He hasn't given up yet, so I think you're safe.
Although you tell if you'd like to handle this matter. No?
I'm going to recuse myself.
Nice. Okay, thank you.
And in reference to Councilor Marshall, Chief Sanders, before you took on interim city manager for at least, I think, 6 months and did a great job, and so. All right, Mr. Neuberg, number 12.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and councilors. In front of you this evening, you have a resolution declaring the city's election to receive state revenues. That's resolution, yeah, easy to say, 08-2025.
All right, so I will go ahead and make the motion to adopt Resolution 08-2025, notifying the state that the city wishes to share in state revenue sharing, and also along with that motion, that we allocate funds as stated by the Budget Committee, awarding $26,000 to the Fire Department and $6,849 to the Police Department.
Second.
Right, the motion is by Mayor Flaherty. I won't repeat all of that, but it's adopting Resolution 08-2025, seconded by Councilor Westrom. Any other questions or discussion? All those in favor? Aye. All right, thank you. And we are now moving on to agenda item number 13, Resolution 09-2025, adopting 2024-2025 budget. I think that's you or Director Ailing, you're on this one, or Mr. Norbury, whichever one.
I am on this one. Well, I guess this is my first shot at this, so it might be a little rusty, but here we go. We do have 4 motions to adopt the budget, and they are started on the 3rd page on the back. And, yep, all 4 of them. If you,
Yeah, and just for the record and for people who are listening in or maybe not familiar with the process, there's an entire budget calendar that is done by a budget officer, which is in our charter always the city manager. And a budget committee met several weeks ago, and looked over the budget. That was chaired by Councilor Westrom and did a great job. And then through that input, questions, this is how we arrived at this budget. And obviously, that was a very oversimplifying because a lot of department heads did a ton of work and they grinded at this. And so even as we prepare to go into these motions, I just want to acknowledge our staff, our department heads, and the challenges that they've been in for the last several months. And appreciate all their hard work for sure.
Yeah, I'm just looking for that ad valorem. It's in the third one. Appreciate it. I'll make a motion that Coquille City Council hereby adopts the 2025-2026 fiscal year budget in the sum of $14,864,279.
Second.
Okay, motion by Councilor Westrom as stated, seconded by Councilor Marshall. Any other discussion or questions? All those in favor? Aye. Or ayes?
I would like to move that this Coquille City Council hereby appropriate funds per the presentation of Resolution 09-2025 for the fiscal year starting July 1, 2025 for the purposes listed within the resolution.
I'll second. Motion by Councilor Westrom as stated, seconded by by Mayor Flaherty. Any other discussion or questions? All those in favor? Aye.
I move that the Coquille City Council hereby imposes ad valorem property taxes upon the assessed value of all taxable property within the city for the tax year 2025-2026 at the rate of $6.1038 per 1,000 of assessed value for a permanent tax rate.
Second.
Okay, motion by Councilor Westrom as stated, seconded by Councilor Waddington. Any other discussion or questions? All those in favor? Aye.
I move that the Coquille City Council hereby categorized for the purpose of Article 11, Section 11B, a permanent tax rate of $6.1038 per 1,000, subject to the general government limitation.
Second.
All right, motion by Councilor Westrom as stated, seconded by Councilor Waddington. Any other discussion or questions? All those in favor? Aye. All right, great job. Thank you, Council. Thank you, team. And thank you, Councilor Westrom, for tackling all those motions. We're going to move on to agenda item number
15.
Actually, we're in 14. So this is the one I mentioned early. 14 is the surplus of a vehicle, Coquille Fire and Rescue. That's in front of us. These are usually pretty straightforward. Thank you, Chief Latimer, for doing that. Any other questions for Chief? And if not, we can just move to motion.
I motion that we allow Coquille Fire Department to surplus their 2008 Chevy Tahoe as is.
All right, that was a motion by Councilor Westrom to surplus 2008 Chevy Tahoe Coquille Fire and Rescue, seconded by Councilor Waddington. Any other discussion or questions? All those in favor? Aye. There we go. Thank you. All right, now we're at 15. Consider ordinance 1534 regarding system development charges. Mr. Norberg, I think you're on the docket.
Mayor and councilors. So as you're all aware, we do have system development charges that are assessed against new developments, primarily for water and sewer activities. However, there has been a trend in the state of Oregon and in certain situations where there could be a trade-off with a developer where the city receives value that would exceed the value of the SDCs to allow a city council to consider that in negotiations for a development. So this ordinance number 1534, which is presented this evening to the council, provides that ability of the city council to consider those kinds of negotiations. It doesn't guarantee that they'll ever be approved or that they happen, but it does give some flexibility to the city.
So in let's just say our one that's coming up, our development that we have, what are the numbers versus, what are the pros and cons? And, you do your job as our manager, and you're to do what's best for the city. Some of us are on the other end of it. We've also got to watch out for the best interest of the citizens of that. And so looking at that and kind of the conversations that we had before and the stuff that I kind of know about it, so if we were ever going to do something like this, when you look at the numbers and you project that out, whose favor does it usually end up working into? I get, like I said, your interest is for the city, but long-term, is there impact on the homeowner or the business owner?
Well, I think that if we're talking in particular, let's say about the Jefferson School parcel, so we've had discussions with the developer, so they know roughly what the SDC value is, but we've had some discussions with them about, since they're going to be paving the street in their development, of also paving West 17th Place. So there's that stretch of dirt there that through various mechanisms didn't get paved when it probably should have. That's my opinion. But we're having a discussion with them about them taking care of that item. So knowing that the street that they're going to put in, which I think is still Hawthorne, Mark? Yeah. Which will be a curve through there with all these houses around it, that street will pick up traffic on West 17th Place, organically. Because when people are coming down from out in the county there, they can go, straight down a very narrow street or a paved street. So, we're looking at mitigating the impacts to West 17th Place. So nothing's finalized there. We don't have final numbers from them, but we're having that discussion. And this would give the city council an opportunity to consider that. Doesn't mean you have to. You get to look at the cost benefits. I think in this particular case, and a few others that look at some of our future developments, if we look at the GP lots. So there's a certain amount of SDCs that could come of that, but there might be other parts of that development, including paving and streets, depending on their design. There's also, in that one, there's some other needs for some infrastructure improvements. So we really would have to evaluate it on a case-by-case basis, and this just allows you to do that. It doesn't say you have to. You all get to decide what's the value. I can tell you in the Jefferson School one, I think that the value is really good there. If we were to mow and pave that street all by ourselves, it would cost more than it's going to cost this developer, but I think the rough cost that we've looked at, it's more than the SDC value. GP lots, it might not be, depending on what's going to be built down there. So, and there can be other places in the community as well, as we're looking at expansive developments. Some of them, there's a couple of lots in the city that could have a fair number of houses. Those might be ripe just for straight SDCs, unless there's some other tangible benefit. I think, in my mind, it comes down to numbers and money, and can it get done? So that's what this is designed to do, and once again, doesn't obligate you to do it. And any trade-off from SDCs between the city and the developer would have to be approved by the city council.
So, and I know you guys have a lot on your plate already, but just for the sake, if this, let's say this just comes up in the next month or so, can you and Director Denny get together possibly and just throw a mock, let's use Jefferson, what could be likely to come up? Can you mock us up some numbers? Just say, just do a rough to where you can present that to us, and, or you can email it out to us and say, hey, look, this is what the numbers look like. These are the possibilities. So that way, if this comes through, it's just not tossed at us and we're going like, well, what? would you guys have time to do something like that? So that way we understand more of what's going on as far as how we're gonna trade this for that.
Right, we would absolutely do that, Counselor. I think certainly before the next meeting, we're gonna have kind of their finalized paving numbers versus the SDC cost. And so we'll be happy to provide you that in advance of the meeting.
Awesome, thank you.
How does, and I wish Haley was here, has anyone talked to Haley? How does she feel about this ordinance?
Well, she's well aware of it, and we've had those discussions with myself and Mark and Haley. I think at first she wasn't a fan of it until, planners are absolutists, which I respect that. But my job is more to look at what's the best outcome for the city. We have SDC funds that we have in the budget, which can be used for projects to benefit the citizenship, and those are designed for expansion. So what's the impact of expansion? Well, in the case of the Jefferson School, the developer is putting in the infrastructure. That's their requirement. They're putting in the water, they're putting in the sewer, storm, all those things. So, do we have something in the near horizon that those fees would be more beneficial than the paving? In this case, I don't think so, and I believe that Haley understands that.
Yeah, and so I know you said this, but I want to reiterate, the language of the ordinance, it's just giving this council body and future council bodies the option.
That's correct.
It still is going to be the job of the staff, the teamwork of the staff, to present to whatever the council body is at that time, their recommendation. And then that council body will have to decide at the time on each specific development.
Agreed. I mean, I can give you another example of where that might be. Say you had a developer that, and I'll use the GP lot since we talked about housing there, that wanted to provide some lower cost units. And, I worked in that field of building those lower cost units, and there's always, them trying to bring their costs down so that at the end, if their rental units are for sale units, they could still have some amount of profitability. So sometimes that's an inducement, and I've done that in the past in other states with other communities saying, okay, we're going to do this, we're going to provide this benefit, can you waive X fees? Like water and sewer connection fees is a really common one. But maybe we don't want to waive water and sewer fees. This will give us another avenue in order to help induce that housing. With construction costs like they currently are, it is very difficult to make a lower cost unit. So, it gives us an opportunity for the future. Whether council ever decides they want to do that, that's going to be up to the elected officials.
Only because it's written in here, and I'm guessing you may or may not have it with you, but what was ordinance 1212 that 1484 replaced?
That was the original ordinance of the city that created the SDC fees.
And what did it say?
It created them as an absolute.
Okay.
No wiggle room.
And then what did 1484 do to 1212?
1484 replaced 1212.
I think it updated fees, costs, when the engineers come in and do your master plans and they do studies on SDCs. Sometimes that's included in that process. So most likely it was an update on what the fees were, which we're probably due for pretty soon.
So just so I'm clear, and I think I am now finally, this just gives the city the option, gives us the option to barter, kind of, in a roundabout sort of way.
Negotiate, yes.
Negotiate, okay, thank you, okay. It's not setting any fees, it's not saying we're not charging, it's just saying that we can negotiate this for that if it's in the best interest of the city.
Right, yes.
Because I'm gonna guess that when we're talking, and just to use the Jefferson, and I apologize to do that, so the West 17th Place is not part of their development?
That is not part of their
And it would not be
development.
purview to their, or what we probably have on the books of development rules and regulations where that's outside of,
Yes, that is
Their-
outside of their envelope of responsibility.
okay. I'm more comfortable with this now.
On that note, I'm going to go ahead and make a motion to adopt ordinance number 1534.
I'll second that.
Motion by Mayor Flaherty to adopt ordinance number 1534, authorizing the Common Council of the City of Coquille, Oregon to exempt certain capital improvements from system development charges, seconded by Councilor Westrom. Any other questions or discussion?
Do you really want any more?
Oh, it's your right. You're up here, my man.
I understand.
Any more for a vote? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
4 yeses. There we go. Thank you.
Thank you, Forrest.
Right, moving on to resolution number 1025, removing the bank signer. Pretty straightforward. And so I'm going to go ahead and make that motion.
Question before you do that, but
I'm going to make my motion, then we'll go to discussion. I'm going to make my motion to resolution 10-2025, updating city finance.
Second.
All right, motion by Mayor Flaherty to adopt resolution 10-2025, seconded by Councilor Waddington. Any discussion or questions?
yes, I want to be clear because it's not crystal clear in this, is the explanation is that Finance Supervisor Ms. Cannon will be leaving. The resolution removes her access from the credit union and LGIP in all capacities, period. Now, that's the end of that sentence. Now I move into the next sentence, which leads me with the question of this resolution will also eliminate access to historical data from Banner Bank. That does not specify the purpose of what I think you're getting at, and it leads me to ask a question, why are we eliminating access to historical data from Banner Bank?
She was a signer on the account.
Does not specifically say that, so I just want to make sure I'm crystal clear that this is all pertaining to the same thing.
Yes. Yeah, and what I'll do is I will turn this over to Banner Bank, and then that way it will remove her access from any historical information.
Okay, because just reading this, it's eliminating access to historical data, which leads me to believe that there's something that someone doesn't want to be found. That's just how I read it. I'm just
I could
saying
see that. I took it more as authorization to know what's on the account, balances, things like that, from the banking world. But yeah, I do see what you're saying, but in the banking world, that's just removing her from having access to account knowledge. She wouldn't do anything with it, nor would she be
I
able to,
understand the
but
intent.
yeah.
There's two different thoughts in there, and
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that there's 100% transparency on what is being discussed.
Yes, it's just authorization, not having the ability to have any authorization over any of our city finance accounts.
Are we going to assign another person? Because,
In July.
Yeah.
cool. Because I know one time it was probably kind of hard to get a check signed here this last month.
A little bit. We made it work.
Did you?
Yeah, he just signs blank checks. That's what he lives for.
Oh, no. We do not allow blank checks around here.
This guy.
Any other discussion? That's worthwhile. I'm going to add, before we go to vote, because I didn't get a chance to earlier, I just want to thank Ms. Lori Cannon publicly, and if she's listening in, thank you for all your hard work. You did a tremendous job, and it was a hard job. And she was well-liked and respected and extremely professional and did a great job. And so I know Bandon gained a great employee, and we lost one. And so thank you, Ms. Lori Cannon. We appreciate you. All right, no other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. All right, there we go. Thank you. Looks like we're at good in the order. One mention, our next council meeting is July 7th. And then also, we're looking at hosting a town hall meeting at the community center either June 24th or June 17th. So I'm still ironing that out, and we will make sure and get that out. That's a Tuesday evening. And the way that'll work is just if any councilors are available. I know we're heading into the summer months and vacation schedules get in the way, but some staff are going to be available. And we're just going to host a town hall meeting so we can have and obviously people are welcome to come to our regular council meetings and give public input always. All of us as councilors represent you, the city, so we are available for access, as well as our city staff. But we will host a town hall meeting. I suspect we'll have conversations about budget, ambulance fee, and maybe upcoming projects. And so just want to let people know. Anything else for good of the order, councilors?
It was one of my councilor goals for ever since I've been here to do town hall meetings. And the dates that you were, unfortunately, I couldn't make one of them, but I was able to rearrange my schedule because I know it was a goal and it's something that I really wanted to do, to get out and be able to talk to people. So the 17th will work for my schedule.
All right, we are going to go ahead and confirm at this point, because I had two councilors at the 24th had conflict. We're going to go ahead and confirm the 17th, and we will confirm location. Time would be 6:30 to 8. And I just need to confirm with Carrie at our community building on the 17th and which room might be available. But let's just go ahead and confirm that now. Got you two on board, and then we'll roll with it. Great, thank you. Thank you, Councilor, appreciate that. And it has been on our council goals for last.
It has.
So appreciate it. So this will be the first of a few, I think, in the future here to create opportunities like that. Good discussion. All right, anything else for good of the order?
Just remember, Gay 90s this weekend.
Yep, I'm out.
Champagne benefit, Sawdust Theater, Friday, doors open at 5. Auction, gonna have a great, great time. Tickets are available.
Anything else for good of the order? All right. I'm going to close our regular session at 8:03. And in the absence of our Madam President, URA President, I will chair our URA meeting. And so I will be calling our URA meeting to order at 8:03. And we're going to move right on to agenda item number 2, consent calendar.
I'll make the motion to accept the consent calendar for our last URA meeting as presented by staff.
Second.
All right, motion by Councilor Marshall to accept the consent calendar, seconded by Councilor Waddington. Any other discussion or questions? All those in favor? Aye. Hey, there we go. At this point, I will now recess our URA board meeting, convene, and now open our public hearing at 8:04 for our budget for our URA 2025-2026. During this hearing, it would be strictly for comment in regards to our budget for URA. Now's the time. All right, seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and close our public hearing and reconvene our URA board meeting and move on to agenda item number 4, Resolution 03-2025. And just for our board members, this is a much more simplified process than the other budget proposals. This will just be one motion to adopt Resolution URA 03-2024. I'm going to go ahead and make that motion that we adopt 03-2025, adopting URA 2025-2026 budget and imposing taxes.
Second.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
It says 03-2024, so if that's corrected to say resolution number URA 03-2025. that would-
Yes. I did read that because I read it off the agenda. Can we still make that motion with that typo?
Yes, you can adopt a resolution as amended.
Okay. Stated adopting that motion as amended, noting that it is URA 03-2025, not 2024. Who seconded that?
I did.
Board Member Marshall seconded that. Any other discussion or questions? All right, we'll go to the vote. All in favor? Aye. There we go, 4 ayes. All right, thank you, staff, for that. We are now on to 5, HGE presentation. Stephanie Martell is here. Thank you. This is for our streetscapes projects.
Good evening, Mayor, councilors. Nice to see you again. In your URA packet, you should have received a cover letter from myself in regards to the North Adams Streetscape Improvement Project. As you are aware, we gathered pricing options from the one and only bidder that we had for the project, Johnson Rock Products. In an effort to control project costs, we entered into value engineering. During the value engineering alternatives, we worked through several different scenarios. 4 options are presented within your packet. After a lengthy discussion with the design team, we have several scenarios that we could go over with you. First, it was presented or requested by the city manager that we provide you with our construction costs, what the A&E costs would be to help get this project built. So on this cover letter, you'll see kind of the breakdown of what that looks like. The majority of the costs are going to be associated with our civil engineering team, as they will provide full scope inspection services for this streetscape project. HGE's construction management fee pretty much remains the same as is. It's noted here that we have dipped a little bit into our bidding administration fees budget that we have, roughly $7,500, and that has been coming to council meetings, preparing presentations for URA and the negotiations with the contractor. The contractor has informed us that he has picked up another project for the summer, so this project would be put on hold and would not occur until after Labor Day, which kind of falls in line really well with what we were discussing with you before. That kind of is the end of your peak busy season for tourism and Sawdust Theaters, since it will greatly impact them and the other businesses along Adams Street. The other thing to note is that, we have spent almost 2 years in discussions with Pacific Power. And we would be remiss in proposing a option that would exclude the electrical improvements to that street, since that is the whole purpose of the project. You will see in this letter that as a design team, if you chose to do any value engineering option, we would recommend option 4, which is electrical work only.
Or 3, you mean? Electrical only?
Yes, correct. Sorry, excuse me. Yes. Option, that being said, the contractor would really like to do everything but electrical. So we're kind of in 2 separate courts in that regards. But we feel as a design team that we would be losing all of the headway that we've made with Pacific Power. I mean, they are geared and ready to move forward on this. And as we know, and as our city manager knows, it has been very, very time-consuming, lengthy discussions to get them to want to help us underground the utilities. So, I guess I open it up for any conversation and discussion. I know that there's a lot included in this in regards to the streetscape project. The other thing that you'll see in this packet is a very rough cost estimate for what we feel, our design team feels, excuse me, it would cost for the Central Avenue striping project. This is, like I said, a preliminary cost estimate based upon our striping layout that we have to date, which has not been reviewed by the county roadmaster that we are aware of. But this gives Public Works Director, Mr. Denning, the opportunity to go out and solicit some quotes and kind of see where this lies in regards to this cost estimate. And also could help, budgeting looking forward on that.
And it's been almost 2 years, so we started this trek with the desire to improve our streets and our infrastructure and start creating something cohesive in the interior of the city that made sense. And so it's been a long journey, and it took us that far through public input. I mean, we've gone through a lot of steps to get to this point where in the fall, we openly discussed each step that we were taking was the next step to get us to the bidding process. Right. And then as we know, when we uncovered the bids, then it was like sticker shock for a lot of us. And then obviously we're in the middle of some budget things. But just to remind people in our community, the URA budget are separate designated funds for these kinds of projects, not tied to the general fund or any of our other budgets categories. And so this type of project is exactly what it's for. It's just how much money do we have. And I wanted to just give a little bit of a history that's so brief of 2 years of hard work of not only HGE but our staff and this council team.
So the only question I really have with this is that
Only one? Only one?
well, it's one that it has several parts.
Okay, that sounds more like it.
So part A is I hate the fact that we only have one bid.
Correct.
I know in my industry,
So do
if
I.
this is what we got, we would do this. And say, well, sorry about that. Question B to section 1 is, so if we go with this and then now all of a sudden we say, you know what, Johnson Rock, we're gonna go ahead and let you guys do this. When everything else is slowing down, we're gonna go ahead and give this to you. To me, I would put it back out because
Yes.
there's probably a lot of guys out there that are just busy. I know Knife River is doing a huge project for us, or for the state of Oregon. And so I also know that that's gonna be kind of a slowing down for them. So I think we would be doing ourselves an injustice to not put it back out and see if we can get these costs down, because that's what it's all about. The more fish you have biting at the bait, the better your chances are, and it'll drive some of these costs down because, I mean, I look at the price of asphalt per unit, holy smokes.
If I may speak on behalf of that, I do agree. We always like to have more than one bid, always. Johnson Rock Products and Knife River Materials were the only two contractors to show up to the mandatory pre-bid walk, which tells us, well, there was one additional one, but they bailed out. They didn't even go on the rest of the job walk with us. It was out of their scope of work. That tells us, as our design team, that those are the two players that we have locally that are interested. We were unaware that Knife River was not bidding the project. They asked questions. The majority of the questions that were asked were in regards to electrical, and the electrical contractor submitted quotes for both, because I have spoken to them directly. The electrical costs associated with this project are very reasonable, with the exception of, as we spoke before, the pedestrian lighting, the site lighting, right? Those were very spendy fixtures that we had specified to match what we have at some of the park facilities. And if we were to go with something that matched what the credit union had, then we could save some cost in regards to that. And you'll see that in that option 3. I do not disagree, Councilor Marshall, on that at all. I think that being that this project is going to be pushed until after Labor Day, that gives us some time to kind of re-look at some things. And after we have this discussion tonight, maybe you can provide me with which direction that you would like to go, if you think that we're going to rebid the whole project, or you would like to see it rebid in parts and pieces that would fit your current budget. And that's kind of the what direction that I'm requesting from you tonight, is how would you like to move forward on this project. I would hate to see this project get pushed aside and collect dust. We've spent, as Mayor Flaherty said, years putting this together so that we can make an improvement on North Adams Street. I think it would be worthwhile to continue discussions with Pacific Power and let them know that this is still happening. There is an opportunity, a potential opportunity to contract out the service upgrades to each one of those existing buildings on North Adams, so that those upgrades can happen now outside of this kind of scope of work. So those are different scenarios that we could brainstorm and look through, knowing that those service upgrades need to happen before anything can go underground and any other power and electrical upgrades can happen.
Yeah, so I was looking at the asphalt, again, that was, so this is option one. It doesn't matter, it stays the same all through all the options, I believe. So 575 ton at $231 per unit, for a grand total of $132,825. So what I don't see is, are they overlaying that? Are they grinding that out? I didn't see a price for AC removal. Where's the what are they doing with 575 ton of asphalt?
I believe on that one, and you'll see that if you look at each option, that tonnage changes, and that depends on what scenario we're looking at. So, and I am not certain if I have the overall original bid included in this packet, and I apologize for not including that as well for comparison. But basically, they're adjusting the asphalt quantities per each value engineered option based upon what patch back is needed.
So that's all they're talking about.
Correct.
Is when they got to patch things back
Correct.
up after they've done
So if they're doing
utilities.
water, storm, and sanitary patch back, then, and electrical, that's a significantly more asphalt than if they were just doing like option 3
Yeah.
electrical.
Yep, I see that. But so the unit cost in the pavement at $231, and I believe that just stays the same. Does that include trucking, I hope, as well?
That is the unit cost for that, yes, it includes.
So that's hauling
the
it
whole,
there.
everything wrapped up into what
Okay. 'Cause
AC
that kind of
pavement
threw me
would
for a
cost.
curve, because I'm like,
Yes.
it's $90 a ton, and so at $90 a ton, we're paying a pretty good penny to haul.
To haul it and to lay it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the labor is associated with
Yeah.
each one of these
So
unit
that's
prices.
the whole,
Correct.
that makes more sense, because I was sitting there looking at that.
And this is a prevailing wage project as well.
I think the tear out too is included in demo. There's
Yeah.
good
Yes.
sized demo.
So the demo and site prep is,
Yeah, I think that's where they're doing their grind out and their tear out.
yeah, no, that's, I just wish we had more, but it is what it is. That's what happens when you're in a little town far away from everything.
Okay, so now that you got me hooked on asphalt, okay.
Thank you, Councilman.
So in option one,
That's the big one.
go and look at option four. Option 4 is 755 tons, and that's everything except electrical. How does that happen?
Like she said, so as they go through and let's say option 1, they're only gonna do this amount of utilities, they're only gonna dig up this amount of stuff, so the layback is gonna be less. This is probably replacing all the electrical, the vaults, the pipes, the plumbing, everything, and then that's gonna be,
So on the cover sheet too, on this cover sheet right here, it explains option 1. We're deleting all water line work in option 1. The water line work is really a patchwork quilt out there in that street. So there is a lot of asphalt patchback and a lot of concrete patchback for that water line. And so option 1 just removes the water line replacement in that option. Option 4 then is all utilities, so water, storm, and sanitary, and excludes the electrical work. The electrical work, they're proposing doing, the majority of it is a directional drill.
Okay, so, all right.
So on option 4, it's
So,
everything.
right, so so option 4 is obviously, because it's 7, even though option 1, which is 2.1 million, it's not as much asphalt. Doesn't make sense to me. However,
Because of the water lines excluded from option 1.
so even at 2.1 million, we still have to come back and do water lines?
Correct. That's why I requested options 3 and 4.
Okay, so that leads me to options 3 and 4. All right, so if we do everything except electrical, no, let me start over. I gotta get my thoughts here. All right, so electrical only is 1.2. Then what's the additional charge gonna be for the electrical part?
Well, option 3 is electrical only. So we would come in the final phase or the next phase of the streetscape project, and we would put in the new sidewalks, the bump outs, repave the entire street, put in all of the underground, or all of the replacement of your underground utilities, current underground, your water, your sanitary, and your storm. We'd be putting in new storm catch basins in the final phase of the project with the new sidewalks.
Okay, so 1.2.
That would be if you selected the option 3 scenario.
Okay, so option 3 is electrical only, 1.27. Option 4 is everything except electrical.
Correct.
And it's 1.28.
What you would get from option 4 is you would not get new site lighting, you would not get pedestrian lighting or new street lights. You would still have overhead power, you would still have overhead communication lines. But you would get all the upgrades to all of your utilities, your storm, your sewer, and your sanitary, or sanitary water.
So 3 puts everything underground at 1.27.
With new streetlights.
So,
Wow.
Yeah.
okay, 1.27, everything goes underground. Option 4, everything stays above ground, but it's 1.28.
Right now.
Right now.
If we come back a year later, you could probably put another 250,000 on that.
Okay,
I'm leaning toward option 3. I mean, myself, that's, it kind of gets what we were kind of looking at, because that's the whole thing. We want all those ugly utilities underground, and we're not seeing them.
So all of the poles would go away. In option 3, all your poles would go away, meaning your power and your communication lines would all go underground. You would get electrical upgrades to the buildings along Adams Street, excluding the credit union because it has already been upgraded.
Already been upgraded, yeah.
Okay, all the rest of the buildings would be upgraded to handle the underground power that would come in and communications. We have worked with Pacific Power on locating where transformer vaults would be. One would be at the corner in the planter area at the public library site, which would really clean up, and that's where we would feed all of this new site lights from, it would be that transformer to really kind of clean up the entrance as you come into town, so we don't have giant transformer vaults, down there by the intersection of the highway.
I'm still trying to figure out how, if we're leaving everything above ground in option 4, which theoretically means we're not doing a whole heck of a lot of tearing up, they still have 755 tons of asphalt. Whereas if we put...
We would be doing a lot of tearing.
We would be predominantly tearing up everything in option 4. Option 3, we are not tearing up as much asphalt. Very minimal.
Even though it's electrical only.
Electrical is going to be directionally drilled.
I still can't wrap my head around this one, but.
So they're going to bore the lines and run the electrical through conduits instead of
Why
going through
don't
there.
they, so why don't they
trenching.
bore the lines in option 4?
You cannot bore lines for utility, and you have to open utility trench.
gotta
But you
open it, yeah.
but you can bore lines for option 3.
Correct, for electrical,
It's cheaper to run a directional driller than it is an excavator.
yes.
And that's, the earthwork is where your money's at, unfortunately.
So lost.
Director Denny, go ahead.
Yeah, could you remind me, the original bid on the project was like 2.8, 2.7?
Do you have that with you?
Is that
I don't have, I may. I may have it.
2.7 something, I think? Yeah. I'm just scratching my head a little bit on why.
Why
Okay,
it's
never-
1.2?
Yeah, why those numbers don't add up and at least equal, if not exceed, the original bid. And I would have to go down through their bid. I mean, I
Yes.
could do that pretty quick, but unfortunately, this is the first time
Yeah.
I've looked at option 4. I think I looked at option 3, but I hadn't looked at option 4 in detail and looked those next to each other. So, I would just want to do some more checking on Johnson Rock numbers, before we, made any final decision on this. But I think we're looking for direction, right?
The direction I'm looking
Yeah.
for tonight is if you would like us to continue down the road with Johnson Rock Products on one of these options, original bid or the 4 options presented tonight, or if you would like us to say thank you for your time and not award the project, and then we would work together with our design team and the URA board to come up with the next step solution. And what I am what I would be proposing is how do we get the electrical to get underground and the buildings to be upgraded to the electrical services that they need? Because that is the original goal within your budget cycle. And then we can look at the actual utility improvements and surface improvements at a later date.
So that can't be done without Johnson Rock? Pacific Power can't do that?
Correct. They need a contractor. They will not do that. There has to be a third-party contractor that would lay the conduit.
It's funny because they're
They'll
only
pull the conduit through the
supplying-
line, but they will not lay the conduit.
Yeah, and just to remind all of us, your statement, the same contractor for the electrical bid.
Correct. I feel that there's an electrical contractor that would be willing to provide a quote at a later date, whenever you decide on a budget and we move forward. It is somewhat within the same scope, so I think we need to, talk with city council on, your attorneys on how that looks on a rebid of portions and pieces of the work.
Okay, so now someone just said you have an electrical contractor somewhere. So what else are we going to pay? If we go with option 3, what more are we going to pay on top of 1.27?
No, that's all inclusive. So your option 3 option is with Johnson Rock Products as your general contractor, and they are holding their bonds and all the liability and covering their subcontractors in that.
And Pacific Power is a subcontractor of theirs?
Pacific Power is not a subcontractor. in
What are
this.
they going to charge? And that's what I'm trying to get at.
Do you have that information?
Because
That's
Yeah,
outside of my scope.
If
That's,
I remember
something for
right,
the city manager.
there's a little hook on this. Go ahead first if you remember.
I'm thinking the number was right, 300 something, 300 and change. So then there's the part that they do, and that's the bill back to our utility customers. So it's a 5-year bill back, and there's a certain amount on that. So they are in addition. The work they do is an addition. So our contractors, or Johnson Rock's contractors, are going to, do conduit, all that, and then you pay Pacific Power to, run the wire, make the connections, and all those kind of things.
Set the transformer,
Yeah.
all of the.
That's where I'm getting. I want to know what we're prepared to spend total for this project, because it's not gonna be 1.274 if we go with option 3. That's what I'm trying to
It would be
get.
more than that. I do
You
not,
want the out-the-door price.
I wanna know what this is gonna cost me.
Well, and if I remember right, it was
Forrest was in the
about,
negotiations with Pacific Power. I don't have that.
I don't remember Forrest, I want to say it was about $2.50 per customer.
Right, it's in that. We
So,
present that to the council previously. I'm sorry.
yeah, we'd have to look it up.
So is that, you said the customer, so is that, you said bill back, so
Last month.
that's not a cost that the city's gonna have to come up with the
No,
physical
that's a cost,
300,000?
that's a cost that goes to PP&L customers throughout the
Yeah.
city.
So Jay, that's not, that 300,000, we're not gonna pay that as a city. It's gonna be billed back to the customers through Pacific Power at their rate of whatever it was,
You'll
$2.
recall in a previous council meeting, we had
Yeah.
the agreement with PP&L.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
said, okay, we're gonna do X, and then there's a bill back on it.
And then if I remember right, and I apologize, it's not in front of us, and maybe what's better for HGE and our staff is if we think we're leaning towards the electrical option, then we don't award and we say, go back, look at the numbers, we need to know what's out the door of the back end. Because if I remember right, it seemed like it was much cheaper than we thought, but I thought it was right around $50,000 for the buildings to get the upgrades, which the URA was going to pay for, or at least we talked about.
So part of this, part of option 3, you'll see a line item, and let me
Oh, okay, so it's in.
direct you. It's in here, yeah. So the service upgrades in option 3, line item 36 is what you're looking at. It's at 54,100.
Okay, so
Which
it's
came in half of what we
What
had
we
anticipated.
estimated.
Yeah.
yeah, okay, so it's in there. Okay, good.
So $108,200 is roughly what it's gonna cost for Pacific Power to do their work, and we're gonna cover half of that for the for the businesses? Is that what I'm understanding?
No, the way we had it in the contract is that the businesses would not be paying for their service upgrades. We originally had budgeted $110,000 of that, of the URA's money, and it came in at 54.
Okay, so 54 is upgrading everyone whose service is gonna get upgraded, and URA is gonna cover that.
Yes, that's correct.
We had discussed it, we were making that improvement.
Okay, so are there any other hidden costs over 1.274 that it's gonna cost us to put the power line to the ground?
Well, yes, because if you look at the cover letter that I presented, that's our A&E overhead, our fees. So construction inspection, our overhead fees.
I'm leaning.
It's hard.
It's really hard.
And
It's a
by
lot
the
of
way, I
money.
just want to say, I think along the lines you do, I just hate to see this shelved. I just don't know, it's just hard. And I don't know, Forrest or Mark, maybe you guys can answer this, but with all of this work that we've done towards the streetscape, I mean, is there any remote possibility, even if we started, let's say we started the electrical only, is there any outside chance for grant fund? I mean, we've gone this far, so we have all of the materials we need. Is there anything even out there that fits it?
Yeah, I'm not real familiar with these types of grants. I would like to believe, doing all the infrastructure and parks grants and stuff that I get, that there should be something out there, but I'm sorry, I just don't know enough about it, and don't know enough about, URA finances, to make a recommendation along that to see how long is it gonna be before we can go to the next phase, right? But I do think that, my opinion is that's an important question to ask, what is the time, not just now, but, what is the timeline? What's the income? What is URA gonna set towards this, and how soon are we gonna be able to proceed with the project?
Yes.
We have just,
So knowing the budget that you have, kind of moving forward, what does that timeline look like to complete this streetscape project, knowing that you have some hard numbers in front of you to help with that?
I would suggest to the board that I think I feel like a direction, and there's some good questions asked tonight, that we could come back at the July meeting with a pretty solid, set of numbers. We'll have the PP&L number. We know what the oversight costs are, the management costs, those kind of things. And we could lay that down. We could also run a future revenue analysis to look at what we know the total project would cost. And if we spend X now, how long does it take to recharge it to do the next phase?
Because if I'm reading this number right, with the financial commitments that on this memo from February of 25, we only have 1.8 left in fiscal year 24-25,
That is correct. Yes.
which ends in a month. Which, if we spend 1.27, that's just leaving URA awful lean.
It does, yes. And then you could kind of look at what the recharge rate is, which is about $600,000 and change annually, 550 to 600. So you're looking at the next 3 years of recharge to do the next phase, roughly. We can narrow that down, but that's pretty accurate.
And I know it's been expressed, it certainly is for me, that the central restriping is a pretty high priority in our community for the safety of our families and kids. So I think there's enough consensus up here. I think, and counselors, you can correct me if I'm wrong, or board members, that we need to just say thank you very much for your time and not award. Is that correct? And then look at the electric option. Is that correct? At least on option 1, 2, and 4.
But Johnson Rock's still the only.
I guess they are the ones doing the but that's where we're I think that's where this group's leaning, or at least a majority.
This could be a.
Did I say that correctly?
So my question would be, would we need a motion to reject the bid?
Or do we keep the bid because it's still Johnson Rock that did option 3, right?
I think at this time, you would
Okay.
still maintain the bid.
Okay.
I'm not certain that the contractor will not pull their bid
Sure.
based upon this,
Sure.
being that this was back in April.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's a possibility, which then leads us into the rebid.
Okay.
Yeah.
After we provided the URA board with some more solid analysis, then if it goes to rebid, it goes to rebid.
And I know we can negotiate with the low bidder, but there are some limitations, right?
Yeah.
I mean, once you substantially change a project, there's a point where we have to rebid it. Right?
Yeah.
So-
Yes.
We have. I mean, they value engineered this, i.e. 4 options.
I mean, this is an earthwork contractor that's now potentially managing an electrical project.
Right.
And
And potentially, that could look significantly different come late September. I mean, I understand where you're coming from, and I think for budgeting purposes, yes, bringing that back, but I think my recommendation would be to reject the bid, all bids, and then we
Start over.
regroup and start over.
do we have bids on the striping project?
That is our cost estimate that's provided
Oh,
to Public Works
yeah.
Directorate.
Oh, okay.
And in hopes that, that was what Mark was going to look at, was now he has a rough cost of where we think it might land, and then he was going to get some quotes for that.
I wonder who's going to bid this project.
So, can I just ask a quick question on that before we move on to the next thing? I was curious, what is, if you know, Stephanie, what is buffered bike lane? What does that mean?
I don't have the drawing in front of me. If you recall, right out here, that's going to be where we're going to have a ramp, an asphalt ramp that kind of comes up, and we're going to utilize that weird bump out as the buffered bike lane.
Okay.
And we'll also be providing bike lanes on either side, going in both directions of Central.
Okay. Yes, thank you.
So $101,000 to do what to that's already there?
Well, these are engineering costs. Take that in mind with a prevailing wage project. And so we would need an asphalt ramp. That's potentially something that Public Works could build.
And that was just. And just remind our board members and everybody who's listening, we asked at the last meeting that we have some kind of idea of estimates of cost for that project, knowing that that was still also high on our priority and still wanting to consider moving forward with the Adams Street project.
So, okay, okay, hypothetically, if this goes to bid and we have the same person bidding on this project, and that's 1.3, and let's just say 400, that's 1.7 of 1.8 million that we have left in the year. So that's really thin and leaves us very little to go for.
Well, they can run the numbers. That doesn't include this next fiscal budget of $600,000 refresh rate.
Right.
You know, so.
But if there was to be some way that that option 3 and if those could be kind of combined together and maybe work out some kind of a package deal.
I am not certain about that. I think you're going to have two different contractors. I think that between now and the next URA meeting, if you reject the bid for the North Adams Streetscape project, I think that I will work with city staff on coming up with a couple different scenarios and some cost layout of where we could be headed by doing electrical upgrades to North Adams, to the buildings and underground with Pacific Power, and for central striping.
Package deal.
Maybe not a package deal, but my
what
goal
I'm
would be
saying.
for the URA to be able to do both of those projects by this time next year.
But you're gonna spend more money if a general contractor, like an earthwork contractor, Johnson Rock, takes that striping bid, because the price to go and rent a striping truck, those are $1 million trucks.
We need a
They don't
striping
come
company
cheap.
to bid.
It'll go to.
Yeah.
Our best would be to either utilize ODOT or the county. You're not gonna be able to beat either one of those. And if you get ODOT in a time where they're mowed here, that's gonna save you, because mob fees will kill you in construction. I don't care if you're digging up highway, or if you're laying it down, or if you're painting it. That's a big cost.
Yeah, and just a reminder, this was just to get that part of that conversation, some numbers in front of us. Director Denny has probably seen this for the first time here recently, and so it needs time to look.
I will say that, ODOT does our restriping. If you guys notice, they come through, and they do it fast, and it is cheaper than this. I can,
Oh, by
tell you
far.
that as-
But
by-
is it the same paint?
It is.
It is, okay, good.
Yeah, we put the good stuff down, yeah. They do offer us the cheaper option as well,
Yeah.
so.
But you don't wanna do that. You wanna
Oh, we
stick,
don't.
you wanna stick with the Durastripe, because paint
Absolutely.
here
Absolutely.
doesn't do any good.
We got off topic, so.
Well, I mean, it's helpful. There's these two different conversations. I mean, it was still very helpful.
I mean, there's a lot on your plate as URA and a lot of options for you to consider, and I appreciate your time.
Yeah.
Do we need a formal motion to recheck the formal bid that was received?
I'll make the motion to reject the bid from Johnson Rock for our Adams Street project.
Right, I'll second that motion. Motion by Board Member Marshall to reject bid proposal by Johnson Rock, seconded by Board Member Flaherty. Any other discussion or questions? I'd like to make a statement, if you could pass along, maybe he's listening in, our gratitude to Courtney and obviously Johnson Rock. I mean, it's a lot of time.
A lot of time and effort was put into
Yeah.
putting together a construction bid.
And I know that
He's to be commended for as many options as he put together for you, and for holding his bid up until this meeting, knowing that he has other work in the hopper.
Yeah, so I just want that on the record. I want to express my thanks for that, and appreciate it. I know he cares, and he cares for Coquille, and so appreciate that.
Yeah,
Right.
Courtney is definitely a good guy.
I agree.
Right. So, on favor of the motion? Aye. And opposed? None? Okay, there we go. With now, have we given enough direction? I think what we're saying is, Councilors, you correct me, is staff and each can look towards option 3, right? Electrical. And if need be, consider maybe at the next URA board meeting, if there's enough time, if we go ahead and rebid that.
We will not be able to rebid it prior to the next meeting, but putting together some packages, so looking at electrical and central striping. And so we'll work with city staff and put together some budgetary numbers for you to look at, to see if we want to move forward.
Thank you for all that you have done, Stephanie.
Yeah.
And we want this to go. We just got to make the right decision and.
I
make the
totally
right
agree.
move.
It's not very often I would stand before the council and ask to reject my project.
Yeah.
But I think this is the right decision. I think it's in the best interest of your URA funds at this
Yeah.
time.
Well, and again, thank you, Board Member Marshall stated, but thank you. I know HD has done phenomenal work for us, and you are Coquille too. And it,
Thank you.
well, so thank you for your investment in
I
our
think you
city.
guys still want me to come back to every meeting.
Yes. Hopefully we get some projects,
Yeah.
keep going, but thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Let your team know as well. We appreciate them too. Thank you.
All right. I lost my agenda. I think all that's left is go to the order, yeah? Go to the order for the URA. Hearing none, we will close our URA at 8:47. Thank you, folks, for coming, and have a great June. Please come out this week. Coquille River Days, the end of this week. Thanks. Bye.